Hi, this is Rice Cake Creations and I'm Sarah. It's that time of the year that the season is changing and autumn is drawing in, which means a range of wonderful flowers and leaves with beautiful colours. So on this tutorial I wanted to show you this delightful sunny sunflower. So if you like what you see, let's get started. As always, I will leave all the details for the equipment that I use in the description box below. Begin by cutting one length of 28 gauge wire, ideally in white, into 8 pieces. You will need around 40 pieces of wire since we're going to cut around about 40 petals in total. For the petal cutter, I'm actually using the cutter that I used to do the calyx for the peony. So if you have the template for that, and I'll leave a link in the description box below, and also you can see the iCard as well for that. Have your yellow gum paste ready, condition it with a small amount of vegetable shortening, and then begin to roll it out, and you need to roll it out fairly thinly. You will need to cut out a total of around 40 petals. However, I do advise you to cut out some extra just in case there are some breakages. I cut out about 4 extra and you'll see what happened to mine at the end. I found cutting the petals out in batches of 8 to 10 and then placing them under the acetate sheet so that they didn't dry out, or in between 2 acetate sheets so they don't dry out, so it gives you time to work on them. So the first method, you may have noticed we've not rolled the petals over a groove board or have any groove lines in there, but you carefully have to try and thread the 28 gauge wire into each petal. Now I have given a second method if you're finding this method too hard to do. Thin the edge of the petal on the foam pad with a ball tool, and then also use either a veining tool or a textured veining tool to texture the surface of the petal. Now it is actually just quite a light texture to the surface. Pinch the tip of the petal and also the part where the wire is into a slight point, and then shape it so that it actually has a natural movement, and then actually leave it to dry on either a bumpy foam pad or within some foil, which is absolutely fine as long as the shape of the petal looks nice and natural. Proceed with all of the other petals in exactly the same way. So the other way to attach the wire to the petal is the twiddle method. So if you can't thread it through the wire, you just literally take a small amount of gum paste. Now your gum paste needs to be quite soft for this, and then starting about halfway onto the actual wire itself, place the gum paste onto the wire and then just twiddle it onto the end. Now it needs to be fairly thin, so make sure you twiddle it on to be fairly thin, and then eventually you will then you don't need to use any gum glue or sugar glue, and then just press this down onto the petal and then proceed to thin the edge of the petal and then texture the petal and then literally set it to dry as the other method. Leave all of your petals to dry before moving on to the dusting stage. To dust the petals, I used a selection of edible colours in sugar flare and also crystal colours in yellow, orange, red and brown, but I ended up actually making my own orange using the yellow and the red. Once you've mixed up a lovely shade of orangey red, then actually apply this only to the base of where the petal is, and also just a touch on the tip as well, and also make sure you don't forget to apply it to the base of the back where the wire is as well. Add a small touch of the brown just to kind of add a little tiny bit of depth, not too much because you want that orange to show through. Make sure you dust all of the petals in exactly the same way, and be careful how you handle them so that they don't break. This is a fairly big flower, so you need the stem to be very strong. So using 6 18 gauge wires, tape them together. If you don't have the florist wire in 18 gauge, then you can also make this by using a wooden skewer as well. Tape this securely together, ready for the next stage. To help with this flower not being too heavy, we're going to use a 7 centimetre styrofoam ball and actually cut off just a quarter of it, just so that it actually acts as the back of the flower. Once you have your quarter ready, make a hole and actually have your glue gun ready as well. Place some glue into that hole and then actually place your taped wire or your taped skewer into that hole and wait for it to dry until it's secure and firm in place. If you're using the florist wire, place a bend in the wire about 2 to 3 centimetres down so that it's slightly angled. Use around 14 grams of dark brown fondant and 36 grams of gum paste, so it's a total of 50 grams once it's all mixed together. And the reason why we're doing it mixed is because it gives us time to work on the centre, because we don't want it to dry out too quickly. Gum paste dries out quite quickly, but the fondant will help it to dry slower, and you'll see why when we come to attach the petals. Once mixed together, you need to make this into a disc shape, which is actually large enough to cover the actual styrofoam ball. Brush some edible glue over the styrofoam base and then place the disc into position. I had a range of things ready to help me texture the surface of the centre, so I had some angled tweezers, some toothpicks or cocktail sticks all taped together, and I also was going to use a tea strainer, but I didn't use that in the end. So begin by taking your ball tool to hollow out the centre slightly. I then decided to use the cocktail sticks that were actually taped together to do the texture in the actual very centre that had been hollowed out. And then took the tweezers to actually pinch the texture on the outer edge of the sunflower itself until it was all completed and done. So do that for the whole of the sunflower centre until it's all completed. I then used some edible colours in black, red and dark brown to mix a colour that was suitable to paint the centre. Now you want this to be fairly dark in colour, and I used lemon extract to mix this colour together. Paint the sunflower centre until it's all covered. Just to add a look of pollen, I just dabbed on a slight bit of yellow around the centre of the flower as well. Cut the wire on the petal down to about 1 centimetre in length so it's easier to push into the actual centre. Do that for all of the petals. So your sunflower centre should still be slightly soft on the inside, so it will make it much easier for you to be able to push the petals in. So literally begin by doing the first row, so it will just literally be around the bottom, push the first row of petals in, and it will be 20 petals for this first row and also 20 petals for the second row. The second row of petals will sit along the top and also sit in between the gaps of the petals below. Now this is where I mentioned about the importance of having extra petals cut out. I did actually have a couple of petals that broke, so you don't want to do all of that work and realise that you don't have enough petals to fill all of the gaps on your centre, so make sure you cut out enough petals. So we're going to cover up the polystyrene on the back, and we're going to do that by cutting out a circle of green gum paste just to actually cover up the styrofoam first. Brush the back with some edible glue or water, and then we're going to push on that circle that you cut out over the back of the styrofoam ball. Make sure it's securely in place and there are no lumps and bumps left. If you need to use some scissors to cut off the excess, then do that. Now to cut out the calyx, I'm used blossom cutters, which sounds a bit strange. Now I've got three shape sizes here, but I actually only use the large one for all of the 3 layers that I cut out. Roll out your green gum paste, position and cut out your first blossom shape. And then what you're actually going to do once you've pulled away the excess gum paste is reposition that blossom cutter, and then what you'll find is it will then actually give you the shape of almost like a sunflower again, or the calyx shape. On a foam pad and using a ball tool, thin the edge of the calyx. Lightly brush some edible glue or water onto the calyx and then thread it down the stem onto the back of the flower and glue that in place. It helps if you have your sunflower face down on either a sponge or tissue as you glue your calyx in place. Now cut out either 2 or 3 layers of calyx. For the sunflower leaves, I used heart cutters and also a textured leaf veiner. Roll out your paste over a groove board and then cut out your heart shape. To further get the shape of the sunflower leaves, I used a scalpel, or you can use a knife to cut out the shape further. The leaf shape should have almost like a slight point where the wire will go. Brush a 24 gauge wire with some edible glue and then thread it through the leaf and secure it at the base. Now for this leaf silicone moulder, I only have one side to it, so I used a makeup sponge to help me push that leaf into the actual silicone mould to give it that texture. Thin the edge of the petal using a ball tool on a foam pad, and also use your veining tool just to further accentuate those vein lines as well, and also down the centre of the leaf. The sunflower leaves have a serrated edge. Use a cocktail stick just to help you get that texture around the edge. Then use either a scalpel or a knife to just cut away small sections of the edge just to further get that serrated look. Bend the leaf slightly in the centre. You can use a skewer to help you do this as well, and then set it on a bumpy foam pad to dry and make sure the shape is lovely and natural. Once your leaves are dry, you can begin dusting it. Now I've actually got a range of sugar flare colours here and crystal colours. Now it's quite a dark green and also a spring colour green. Take the dark green through the centre and the dark green along the edges of the petal, and the light green over the surface. Make sure you dust the back in exactly the same way. Don't forget to dust the back of the calyx as well. Use half width green florist tape to take the leaf first. Angle the petal slightly to about a 45-degree angle, and then again use half width light green florist tape. Tape on the larger petal first onto the stem of the flower. Then tape on the smaller petal slightly lower down. Once all assembled, you can lightly steam your flower and your leaves over either some hot water or with a steamer. And the delightful sunflower with leaves is all done. Please remember that if you make this flower or any other tutorials that I've shared, to share it with me either on Instagram or Facebook. Just do #AriseCakeCreations. Don't forget, you can also go over to my blog as well at arisecakecreations.com. There's lots of other tutorials there as well. I really hope you like this tutorial, so don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching. See you soon.